Hi everyone, welcome to the fifth part of Contact Management System LWC project implementation. In this session, this would be the last session for this particular project series. So in this session, we are going to check how we can bulk delete the data. Okay, rest all we have already covered. So this is the last functionality that is remaining. So let's just see from the UI perspective that how are we going to make selections and how we are basically navigating so that it will help us in order to understand the sequencing and it will create mind map for the flow how you are going to actually implement it. Okay, so for bulk deletion, if I select multiple contacts, okay, and if I click on bulk delete, then just think what and all should happen. So this is my UI. Okay, I have selected 3 contacts. And when I'm selecting 3 contacts, that means I'm selecting the whole record, right? It's not that I'm selecting just the contact ID. I'm selecting the whole record. So basically, I've selected 3 whole records from this list of contacts, from this table. Okay. So from this, and this is my lightning data table, right? So my lightning data table should have something to identify that what are the rows, multiple rows that are selected by user. Okay, so that is point number 1. Okay, after you have that, the next step would be to get those rows to JS. Okay, because in HTML you can't do any kind of manipulation on these selected records, right? So from HTML you can only expect that if data table has any attribute or if it has any event handler using which it can tell you that what are the records that are selected by the user. Okay, so that is step 1. Now step 2 is that once you get those selected rows in JS file, you need to figure out that how you can extract the ID, correct? Because as I told you, right, that when you're doing these multiple selections, that means just imagine that there is an array, okay? And in that array, there are multiple object, and just like every record is nothing but an object, right? It has these details, right? First name, last name, title, phone. So this is the first record, second record, third record. So it is nothing but like a single contact object, right? One contact object, second contact object, third contact object, right? So basically when you select these multiple rows and when you bring it to JS, what will you get? Right? If they even if data table helps you, what will you get? You will get an array of objects, right? Now the second challenge would be to fetch out the ID from the array of this objects. Okay, so that is point number 2. Point number 3 is once you get the ID, what is the third and final step that you should do? You need to pass that ID to a method in Apex class which can receive this list of IDs as a parameter and then just query those contacts and delete it. Okay, so only these three steps. Okay, it's pretty simple. The only part where it gets challenging is how to extract the ID from the selected rows. All right, so let's just start by doing the easiest part. The easiest part is to just go in the Apex class and write an Apex method to delete the contacts, and it should also receive list of contact IDs as parameter, right? Because you will be doing multiple selections. So you are not supposed to provide only one, any, for example, string ID. You cannot do that because you are selecting multiple rows. That means you will have multiple IDs, correct? So that method should delete everything that you have selected. So that is why you would have to write a method in your Apex class, and that method should receive list of contact IDs and then query those contacts and delete them in Apex class. Okay, so that would be step 1. Step 2 of the implementation would be going back to data table and figuring out that attribute which will give us all the selected rows. Okay, and step 3 would be that on this button click, right, what will I do with that selected rows that data table is returning me? On this button click, I will try to fetch the IDs of all the selected rows that data table has given me. Okay, and once I have the IDs, I will simply call the apex method that I created in step 1, and I will pass this list of IDs to the apex method and done. Okay. So these are the steps that we have to follow. Now let's just go ahead and get started with the apex method first. All right. So I'll move to my VS Code. So let me go to the apex class first. Okay. All right. I had already written this, I think. Yeah, I had already written this, but this is not gonna work, right? Okay, this is for like this was for single deletion, but I'm not even using this. I don't know why did I write it. So let me remove it. Okay. All right. So now we have to write a method, right? And what should be the parameter? The parameter should be taking the list of IDs, right? Contact IDs. So let's just first define enabled. Okay. And then it is delete, and we are not going to use wire. So it's fine if we don't use cachable is equals to true. So here public static void. I'm giving it as void because it is not going to return us anything, right? It is just deletion, right? It is not returning us. We don't need any kind of list to be taken from here to somewhere else, right? It's just a delete operation. Okay, so here delete bulk contact data. And as I said, it should be, the parameter should be list of IDs, okay? List of contact IDs. So you can here take the type as list of ID, okay? Contact IDs are nothing but ID, right? So here, and just give the name as list contact IDs, okay? And once you have these IDs, what do you have to do? You simply have to delete it, okay? So let me first query these, okay? So list of list of contact, and then here we can say lst contacts to delete, okay? And then I will write the query here, and then let me move the space a little bigger. So here select ID from contact where ID in where in this list, right? So I need to query all the contacts where the ID is in this list, right? So if it has 3 IDs, then every every contact should be fetched. Okay, so here. All right, and once I have this, I just have to delete it. Okay, so delete, and then this list. That's it. Okay, so this is the method. Let me deploy this. And also let's just go ahead and quickly import this. Okay, so let me go to the JS file, and I was not using it, so I just want to remove it. I'm not, no, actually we were using it, right? So to delete the contact, correct? So sorry. So let's just go back here. Let me copy this and Control Z. That was for single deletion, right? And here. Okay, so delete bulk contacts data. So save it, and then deploy this. Let's go back to JS, and then I'm just copying this, and I have to now copy this, and I have to import the method that I just created for bulk deletion, right? So delete bulk contacts, come back to JS, and here. And here, let me give the name as bulk delete contact, okay? And so this is the first step that we talked about, right? So just listen carefully about the steps that I am saying, right? That what are the sequence of steps that we should do, because I'm going to follow exactly the same. Now we have created the method. We imported that method because we had to import this method, right? Now the next thing is to go back to the HTML file and figure out if Lightning data table has something that can actually give us selected rows. Okay. And yes, it does. Okay. So Lightning data table has an event handler. Okay. So there's an attribute, and that event handler will always return you a property, and that property holds all the selected rows, as in whenever user selects multiple data, more than one, then that property holds all the selected rows. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go to the HTML. Where is the data table? Here is the data table. Okay, so in the data table, 1 second, right? So yeah, okay, I got confused with this one. So on row selection, this is that this is that attribute. And on row selection, let me define a property here. Okay, and let me give the name as handle bulk deletion. All right, now I would try to explain. So there's one thing that you would have, you would be clear about, right? That okay, this is helping us in order to identify what are the rows selected by the user, correct? So basically, if I give you like a brief explanation about this whole, like, this on row selection thing. So this is to basically perform actions when user selects one or more rows in a data table. Okay, so no matter if it is just it might be some other operation as well, right? Apart from bulk delete, let's say for any other purpose, you want to, select multiple data and you want to fetch the IDs, right? So for all those cases, you can use this attribute, okay, on row selection, because its primary purpose itself is to kind of perform actions when a user selects one or more rows in a data table. Okay, now what about the events that it has? Okay, so when rows are selected or deselected, okay, so how will this data table even come to know, and why on row selection, how is it going to get event triggered? Okay, because for each and every attribute here there has to be a trigger point, right? So when user on the UI selects or even deselects any of the rows, then this event is fired. Okay, and this event dot detail dot selected rows property, this is one of the properties of this event that contains an array of the currently selected rows, the same array that we just talked about when we started this session, right? So all the records that the user is selecting, that is nothing but array of objects, right? Because every record is an object, right? And all together they become array of objects. So when this particular on row selection is triggered, the event that holds the selected rows, right, which is nothing but event dot detail dot selected rows, so that property contains an array of the currently selected rows. Okay, so I hope that you're understanding it. If you're not, it's fine. When we actually implement this method in JS file, maybe you'll get a much clear understanding of how. So till now, if you understand the flow very well, right? So this is an attribute, or you can say that this is one of the event handlers, right? That means, what does it mean event to be like an event handler, right? So when I will try to implement this method in my JS file, I will have an event. Okay, because that is where it has been embedded with. Okay, so this particular attribute is giving me the event, and that event, based on this attribute, that event is giving me one specific property, and that property is event dot detail dot selected rows. Okay, so I will get all the selected rows, but as I said, those selected rows are not going to be in a very plain structure. It's array of objects, the way we just discussed. Okay, so let's just go ahead and try to let's just first try to get those selected rows inside some other property in JS, right? So that is the first thing we are going to do. So let's go to JS and we'll first implement this. Okay, so here, and event All right. Now, which was the property that I talked about? The event detail property. Event dot detail dot selected rows, right? So that event dot detail dot selected rows will give you the selected rows. So here, event dot detail dot selected rows. I'm not sure if R is going to be capital or no, I think it's fine. Now this is going to give me array of objects. Okay, so I need another property to store this array of objects. Okay, so let's just define a property, and let me define that property here. Okay, so selected rows and then array of object, right? So I'm just going to take this, and then I will transfer all the selected rows from the event to this property, because right now all the selected rows are inside the event dot detail dot selected rows property, right? But I want to transfer all the rows to this particular property. So I will go here, this dot this. All right. But then again, just transferring does not mean that I have like a simpler structure now and I can just simply like, get the IDs. I still need to figure out a way to get the IDs of these selected rows. Okay. So, so this was step 2, right? Now data table has given us the selected rows. Okay. Now what do we need? We need the contact IDs, right? So first of all, I want to explain you how the data will be inside this. Okay, even if we, let's say, let me print this for you. Or let me first explain this to you. Okay, so if I print this, okay, you know what will I be getting? I will be getting something like this. So if I have selected 3 records, okay, so this one will have details something like this: ID, ID is equals to, and then whatever is the ID, right? Then first name, then last name, and similarly for all the contacts, right? So array of objects. This is how we will have the data. Now the third step would be, I mean, you, if you want, you can, if you're doing this activity along with me, along when you're watching the video, you can do console and check. Otherwise, this is how you're going to get the data. Okay, so I'm not going to do it, but this is the structure in which you are going to see the data. Okay, so now once you have the selected rows, what is the third step? The third step was to figure out a way to fetch the contact IDs from this structure. Okay, now because currently this structure has this, like, array of objects, right? So with each object there are much more details along with ID. Okay, it's not just ID, it is ID, first name, last name, phone, email, whatever we have kept, right? But we need something using which we can only fetch the ID. Now if we go back to lecture 2, okay, session part 2 of this, part 2 or part 3, no, sorry, part 2 of this whole project series, you guys would remember map function, right? And what, so in JavaScript, every array will have, like, map function available. And what does map function do? Map function has the ability to copy the original data, okay, to make a shallow copy of the original data without modifying the original data. So basically when it makes its own copy, it can, like, modify the data, the data and the structure the way it wants, but by doing that it will not modify the original structure. So if I use map function, okay, I'm just writing it here, I mean, I'll so this map function, if I use it here, I will be able to iterate over this. This is my original data, iterate over this, and then create my own object. And in that object, I will only keep the contact IDs. Correct? I'm not going to keep anything else because I only need contact IDs. So the solution to the third question is map function. Okay, now let's just go ahead and do this. Okay, so we are not going to do anything over here. Okay, so no, this is fine. Okay, so selected rows, and then after this we need to use the map function. Okay, so handle bulk delete handle. And one more thing I wanted to check, what was the, where's the button? This one, right? I just thought that the button name was something else. Handle bulk delete. Okay, so this is fine. Let's just go back to the JS. Okay, so all right. No, that is what I was confused about. This is not, we have written it at the wrong place. So this will not have event, right? This was on the button, right? Button click. Let's go back to the HTML. This, okay, the name, okay, the name handle, it's very similar, right? That is why I was getting confused. So here I will give a different name, okay? Or let me give this a different name. No. Handle row selection, okay? Now it is, I really got confused because here it was delete, here it was deletion. So I was like, where am I writing this, right? Because this one will have this is the event handler, right? So from here you will get the detail of the selected rows. Okay, so this function JS file, this is what will have the event. So we were going in the right path. The only problem was the name of the on click function on the button was also very similar. Okay, so I just changed this one, the name. Okay, so now here we have we have all the selected rows. Okay, now let's just also take this handle bulk deletion. Now we have the rows. The next step is to handle the, basically to extract the IDs and then call that delete method from Apex, right? And where we are going to write that part, we will write that part here, right? Because you will only perform that action when someone clicks on the button, right? So not on row selection, right? It's not like that somebody clicked on row selection and you just deleted the record. No, people will the functionality should be as that you do multiple selection and then you hit on the button. So we did the multiple selection, we got the selected rows, here. Now what is the next step? When you have the selected rows, the next step is to click on the button, right? So handle button delete, sorry, bulk delete, and here, so in bulk delete I'm going to, so first of all here, so let's say if someone does not select anything and just clicks on handle bulk delete, then what should we do? We'll just give an alert. Okay, so here now we know that this selected rows has all the rows, right? So I can simply, I can do I can check the size of the selected row if it is 0 or if it is more than 0. If it is 0, that means user has not selected anything, but they clicked on handle bulk, the bulk delete button, right? So the first thing that I want to do here is if if this dot selected rows, okay, if this dot selected rows, you know what, this might create some I want to keep it in a constant, okay, so that if we do anything, it should not kind of alter. So, or let me just do this, okay, const all selected rows, and then I'm going to assign this selected rows to the property that we had created. Okay, I just don't want to play with the original one here, so I would assign this. Okay, and this should be this dot selected rows. Now if this dot selected rows dot size, right? Why does it never give me the suggestion? I always have to think or go back and search that. Okay, it's because it is not size, it is length, right? Length is equals to 0. Then that means user has not selected any of the rows, but they are clicking on the bulk delete button, right? So I will simply give an alert here. I'm not going to do much about it here, and we'll just give a message. Please select at least one row. Okay. And then return. Okay. And now the most not difficult part, but I think something that you guys would have been concerned about if you are not very clear on the map function. So now let's just first define a constant. Okay, constant, and I'm going to give it a name as contact IDs. Did I write something? Contact IDs. Okay. And in this contact IDs, now I want to fetch the contact ID from all the selected rows. Okay. Now, how the map function works, right? So here, this dot, what is our selected row? This is selected rows. This dot selected rows. These naming conventions, right? You have to be like really careful about it. Okay. Selected rows, or I think it's better to just say it as, because here all selected rows. So you should never name your properties where you yourself get very confused after you see it. Okay. So let's just give the name as selected contact. I'm so sorry for changing this like a lot of times, but I just want to make sure that we don't get confused ourselves. Okay. So this dot selected rows. Okay. So basically, when in data table on row selection, this was the event handler. Okay. So in this particular function, we receive the selected rows. Okay. And we have kept it in a constant property, all selected rows. But then we transferred this into another array. Okay. Selected contacts. Again. All right. I need to chill, I think. Selected contacts. I hope you don't get lost in the back and forth that I'm doing. But again, right, that kind of also proves if your concept is clear, then you will not get lost. Otherwise, you will get lost. So from here, right, event.detail.selected rows property, we are keeping all the selected rows here, and then we are transferring it to another array property. Okay, selected contacts. Now we have to implement map function on this, right, and take out the IDs. All right, so this dot, and I'm only planning to take out the IDs using the map function. So if I take out the IDs from all the rows, then what structure will I have? Let's just imagine. You remember the previous data that I had created? I'd created something like this, right? Sorry to draw it again, but this is important to understand. Okay, so that is the only reason that I'm iterating it again and again. So here, some ID, and then again, like first name and stuff like that. First name and other fields. Okay. And similarly, we had the same thing for the row 2. Okay. And then for the object 3. But after the map function, how I want to see the result as? I want to see the result as this. Okay. ID1, ID2, ID3, all these contact IDs. Okay. This is my goal. And I can do this using map functions. So I'm not going to remove this right now. Let's just complete this, and then, so this dot selected contacts, okay? This dot selected contacts and dot map, right? Again, I'm hoping that you remember the syntax, okay? It's not that crazy, but yeah, still. Now, while iterating through each and every object, so what is each and every object? It is nothing but contact, right? So I just need to pick the ID, contact.id, and that's it. Okay, so here, contact, and we are going to use arrow function, and we will get the contact ID, okay? And you know what? This is it. Okay, so we have used, so this dot selected contacts dot map, and then it is iterating through each and every contact, as you can see the structure below. and it is fetching the contact, just taking the contact IDs, okay? And it is keeping inside its own. So initial, right? The initial definition that I told you guys, right? That it kind of like, makes a shallow copy, okay, of the original data and keep it in a new object, or like, whatever it property it creates. It keeps that like, shallow copy of the original data into the new object that it creates without modifying the original data. Okay, so in the original data, the structure was like this, right? And also in the original data, the object had a lot of other information. But what did it do? It created map function. Using map function, we could create our own constant here, and we were able to just fetch the ID, okay? This is going to iterate over all the contacts, 3 contacts, okay? So it will iterate, it will take out the contact ID, and it's gonna just keep it here, okay? So it will be ID1, ID2, ID3, like, this way. You will get all the IDs here. All right. So I hope you understood this. If you guys did not understand till now, if you haven't understand about map function, I would say, like, try to put debug for, like, each and every line that you have, right? For example, this one is still like, very short one, but the exercise that we did to kind of display the account name, right, when we use the map function, that was pretty good one. Okay, so you can do similar exercises and you can figure out. I mean, if you don't understand, right, then practice more and then put debug wherever possible, so that you will know that for each and every line, what is the output you're getting and how it is iterating, how it is forming the structure and stuff like that. Okay, so for example, here I can explain it one more time. So for example, if I go to, like, level 0 of explaining it, okay, so this would be like, so if you know that, like, this dot selected contacts, from there, let's just start from there, right? So this dot selected contacts, this is referring to a property, right, that I have created. Okay, so and also, for example, this, if you don't understand the meaning of this, I hope that you do, because we use it a lot and you should be knowing the meaning of this. So this usually refers to the current instance, right, of class. Again, I'm not going into very detail, but if you guys want, I can create another video on that. Okay, and then after that, as we know that selected contacts is like, array of objects, then this map function dot map, so this method is, as I said, it is available on all JavaScript arrays. Okay, and the structure that we have here, you can say this is also an array. It's an array of objects, right? So this map function is available on all JavaScript arrays, and it is used to transform each element in the array based on a given function and returns a new array with a transformed element, but it does not modify the original array. And this contact.id, right? Contact arrow function and contact.id. If I explain you this line, then this line in arrow function. So basically, this is an arrow function in JavaScript, okay? And for each contact object in the selected contacts array, this function return the value of the ID property. Okay, so yeah, so that's about it. Let's just proceed, okay? If you guys still have some doubts, you can still, like, drop some comments, but I think we are good for now, I believe. So now we have the contact IDs. The next step is just to call the delete method and pass this contact IDs to the parameter that we have created in the Apex method. Okay, so I am going to let me remove this now. Okay, and here, what is the method name? The method name, whatever we have given here, right? Bulk delete contact. So I'm not going to use wire here, right? Because we are not displaying anything with the use of this method, right? It's just a delete operation. So we'll use imperative method, right? So here, sorry. Okay. So this is what we have, right? Now, when we are calling this method, we have to pass parameter, right? And to pass parameter, you first need to check that this method in Apex class, what is the name of the parameter that you have given? The name of the parameter is list of contact IDs. Okay. Then go back to JS. This is list of contact IDs, okay? And then colon, where do we have contact IDs here? We have it here, right? Contact IDs. So contact IDs. So once we have called that method and we have passed the parameter, then hopefully it would have it will go and delete the contact. So then again, after this, we just have to write then and catch block that if the result was successful, then we will just display a message. And if the result was some erroneous result, then we will just display some kind of alert or error itself. Okay. So here, let me just type, sorry, dot then, and so result, okay? And in the result, arrow function, okay? And so once we have a successful result, we want to, and then again, now show toast message. What do we have to do to in order to display the toast message? The first step was to import show toast event, right? That is already done in this class. After that, you can simply dispatch that event and you have to provide the basic details like title, message, and variant. Okay, so here, this dot dispatch event, okay, and inside this, you have to pass those, no, sorry. So dispatch event, okay, and then new show toast event, okay, show toast event, and inside this you have to pass those information. Okay, so the first one was title, title I would be passing as success. Okay, and then message, I don't know what contacts we can just write, or let's just say what you can write whatever you want. Bulk deletion was successful. Okay, and what else? We can give the variant for the message, right? Variant would be success, because that displays the message in green box. Okay, so this was about then, and after this we have to write the catch block. Okay, so if there's any error, so catch block here, error, and so here I'm just going to give an alert. Okay, and that's it. Alert, and then error deleting records, something like that. Error deleting records. Okay, and I hope I'm not missing anything here. Cool. So I think we are done with this functionality, but let's just quickly recap. If you don't want to recap, just fast forward and see that what happens. Okay, so we created a method to delete the contacts, and we have given a parameter for list of IDs because user will select multiple rows, right? And then we have written a query to fetch all those contacts with these IDs, and then we have deleted those contacts. Okay, now we have imported this method into the JS file. Okay, we imported this method into the JS file. Now, before we actually go ahead and call this method, before that we have to do a lot of work, because we have to collect the IDs before we call this method, right? So for that, we will go back to the data table, and data table has an event handler. So this attribute on rows selection will help you, because this has a property called event.detail.selected rows that is primarily used for it is triggered when user not that property, but this itself gets triggered when user selects one, or when user selects or deselects one or more than one rows. Okay, and then after data table, after this event handler trigger, you have to receive the selected rows in your JS file under this method, because this will have an event listener along with it. Okay, so we will go back to the JS, and what was the name? It should be at the end, right? This one, right? Event, and then event.detail selected rows. This is the standard property that you will get, right, out of from that on row selection. So we are keeping everything under this constant, and then we are passing that under an array, right? The array property that we have defined, and we have defined it over here. Okay. And after that, so once we have the selected contacts, the next step was to, as a user, right, once they have selected the contact, they will click on the bulk delete button, right? So when they click on the bulk delete button, this function will be called handle bulk delete. Okay, so we will go to handle bulk delete, and in this function, okay, we already had gathered the selected contacts. So in over here, we are just going to use, this is just for like, if they have not selected anything and they are trying to click on the bulk delete. But if they have selected multiple rows and we have something inside this, then we are going to use map function, because our goal is to convert that array of objects into just array of IDs, contact IDs. Okay, so this use of map function, it is going to iterate over every object of contact in the array. It will take the ID and it's going to store everything over here. Okay, so basically this is making a shallow copy of the original data, but keeping it the way it wants, right? It is only keeping what it wanted. Okay, so it is not modifying this, but it is also when it can create the way, like, it can keep whatever it wants. Okay, the map function. So once we had the ID, we call the bulk delete function. And here we have passed the parameter, and the parameter was expecting list of contact IDs. So list of contact IDs and list of the contact IDs is nothing but it has, like, all the contact IDs that has been selected. And then based on the result, we are dispatching an event. So dot then is like, the code will enter this block if there was a success. Okay, and then this will display it. If there was an error, then the error will get displayed. Now let's just go ahead and deploy the class and also this component. Okay, and let's check if it's working or not, because after all this over exaggerating conversations, what if it's not working? It should, but let's just, there might be other issues, right? So let's just go ahead and check. All right, so here also this was selected rows, right? All selected rows, but this was also, I think, let me just deploy it again. Okay. Right. I did not change anything. This was just because I had shifted everything to this one, right? Selected contacts. So, but this was still like, checking the length based on this. Although that would have also been okay, but then we are only working with this one, right? Where we have actually copied the data. So anyway, let's just refresh and see. So I'm going to select multiple contacts. Let's select two. So when I click on here, I should get the notification toast message, and also the page should auto refresh. Okay. And perfect. Let's just delete these two test data as well and see if it's deleting or not. All right. Okay. So I think with this piece, we are done with what we intended to create. Okay. We had a search bar, we had a new contact button, bulk delete button, and then displaying the data, and also these two actions. So I'd seen that a lot of people were asking about create projects on, like, this all basic crude operations, right? Create, read, edit, and delete. So I think this whole series is a pretty good example of the basic, like, create, read, edit, and delete functions that we have. All right. And I will keep on creating projects, but if you guys have any suggestions of, like, any projects or anything that you think, like, would be interesting, you can drop a comment, and I can definitely, whenever I get time, I can definitely consider one of those. All right. And the next projects that I would be creating. For example, this one like was like the first LWC project, right? At least the one which took this much of time. So everything that we had actually like, we implemented was pretty much honestly not very twisted. Okay. It's like everything was like very straightforward. So for example, if you know a lot of things about, for example, as we just discussed, right? If you would have known about map function, then it was just a piece of cake for you. Okay, but if let's say if you would have seen map function, but if you had no idea what it is, what it does, why is it used, then that is when it becomes challenging for you, right? So I would say that even for this one, okay, whatever you're practicing, I would say that e- one minor functionality can take maybe like a whole day, but it's okay. I mean, that is how you will learn, right? If you go and check and get frustrated is the exact time when you lose it, right? So I think this is the most basic project involving all the four operations and then few functionalities here and there, right? But if you complete this one, if especially if you're a beginner, right, and if you are able to understand everything, if you could complete all of this, then trust me, it's a really good start for you. And anybody on a very advanced level would anyway not be, I think, watching this, but either like, accidentally, otherwise nobody will actually watch these like, basic projects, of course not, right? If let's say there are other projects involving integration, this and that, then maybe people are more interested into those. But for any of you who is practicing LWC or wants to practice LWC and the concepts are not clear, you know what, when you're going through all these videos, even if there is one line which you think is the most, could be the most stupid question, right? You can ask, you can drop a comment. I cannot reply. Maybe I will not reply the same day, but it might take 1 day, 2 day, or maybe a week, but I am going to reply back for sure. Okay. So for example, in this one, I asked, right, that do you even know that why we are right everywhere we are writing this dot, this dot, this dot. So these kind of like, minor details, if you don't know, then search about it, read about it. Basically everything that you're writing or you're coming across, if you don't know about it, then like, get to know about it. That is the only way to kind of like, learn and grow. All right. So uh this was all about this contact management system project. I wanted to include pagination, but I have not. Maybe I'll create another video, but I'm not going to include pagination in this series because here we had only displayed like 15 contacts, right? Of course, I can like, I don't have that many contacts in this org, so I can display like, good amount of contacts here, right? But I also wanted to implement pagination, but I did not. Okay, I'm just finishing it over here. But if any of you are interested in pagination, do drop a comment. If I get any requests for pagination, then only I'm going to create another video and implement pagination. Otherwise, I won't. Okay. So thank you for watching and thank you for all the support. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.